The demand by the Southern Governors Forum for the next president of Nigeria in 2023 to come from the southern section of the country was bolstered on Tuesday by Senator Samuel Ortom of Benue State and the Middle Belt Forum, which both backed the governors. However, the Arewa Consultative Forum and a fringe coalition of northern groups have kicked against the demand, accusing the southern governors of ganging up against the north to force a regional shift of the presidency by whatever means necessary. To discuss the positions taken by both sides of the divide and the deepening fault line between northern and southern Nigeria, we're now being joined from our Abuja studio by Hon Mark Terseer Gbillah, the lawmaker representing Gwer-East and Gwer-West, Federal Constituency of Benue State in the House of Representatives. Welcome to the show, Honorable Gbillah. Good morning.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Honorable Gbillah, good morning. Very quickly, we've been told that the Middle Belt Forum and the Middle Belt in general is in support of the resolutions of the Southern governors with regard to rotational presidency and their resolve that the next president should come from the South. The Southern Senators Forum has also more or less supported the same position. Governor Zulum, Governor Ishaku, and others have also said, look, it makes sense to ensure that there is a rotational presidency and that there is state police. What are your thoughts on these issues? And do you agree that this is some kind of gang up against the northern part of Nigeria?
Thank you very much, Ruben. And very quickly, I thought I heard your colleague call the governor of Benue State senator. I believe that was a very slight error on her part. But with regards to what you mentioned, we are happy, I am personally happy, that the southern governors have started to show the leadership that this nation and people of the southern region of this country, and indeed Nigerians, have been looking for from our governors. They have picked up the gauntlet, and it is very commendable. With regards to the specific issues, the issue of southern presidency, like my governor, Governor Samuel Ortom, has very articulately mentioned, is something that in the Middle Belt we are in complete support of. And that is because the unity of this country, as we speak, is teetering on the precipice. There's a lot of agitation, especially in the southern part of this country, for self-actualization, to be able to be part of this united Nigeria. While we are not in support of any secessionist tendencies or desires, we believe that every part of this country should be able to participate and feel like they belong. Our Constitution, in Section 14, Sections 14, 3, and 4 specifically, is where the principle of federal character is enshrined. Now, I know that the Arewa Consultative Forum and the Northern Elders were talking about the issue of the freedom to choose whoever we want, but you see, the Nigerian creation is a peculiar one, and if we want to be able to solve the issues of this country, we need to recognize the peculiarity of our country. If we remember, we had different protectorates that were amalgamated into one. That amalgamation was about ethnic peculiarities, indigenous people in different parts of this country. The Northern Protectorate and the Southern Protectorate were amalgamated in 1914, like we all know. And since then, the problem we have had as a country is for every single part of this country to feel like they belong to the entity called Nigeria. So, with regard to the Southern presidency, I do not believe that it is something that is out of place. It is not a gang-up. It definitely isn't. It is a proper articulation of the yearnings of a people in a certain part of the country. For us in the Middle Belt, we completely identify with this clamor by the Southern governors, and we believe that is the way to go. The issue of state police, as you're aware also, the provision is something we are trying to enshrine in the Constitution, and the second reading with regards to a bill in this regard has been passed on the floor of the House of Representatives. It is long overdue. That is the only way that we can begin to tackle the incessant issues of insecurity bedeviling my state and my constituency in particular, which is one of the frontline areas of these incessant attacks. And of course, the issue of the PIB, the percentages, these are all issues that we believe need to be looked at. We are not immediately affected by the production now, but the Benue Trough is one of the locations where there have been initial sightings, let me use that term, of oil. So we should be in support of the frontier exploration provision of 30%, but we're not, because we believe in equity, we believe in justice. The people of the Niger Delta have been saddled with this issue for several decades. Their environment has been destroyed, and yet the allocation of 5% is what even we in the House approved, which is grossly inadequate, and the Senate even made it much worse, which in my opinion is unfortunate. It's ridiculous. So the 30% for frontier exploration is unacceptable. It is not money that can be accounted for. These are the issues we have. But when you're talking about allocation to host communities, you can account for it. Leaders of the community themselves can be held accountable. But in regards to monies that would claim to be allocated to exploration, these are avenues for corruption. We all know that very well in this country, and we don't support that.
Right, Honorable. I actually called your governor Samuel Ortom. I never described him as a senator. You misheard me. And it appears that in a similar vein, Governor Zulum misheard or misread the coalition of southern governors. Governor Zulum is quoted in today's press as saying that he's in support of a southern presidency, but he wants the southern governors coalition to remove the word must from that statement, except that that statement never contained the word must. The statement signed by the chairman of the Southern Governors Coalition, Arakuni Akeredolu, the governor of Ondo State, said should. The next president of Nigeria should come from the South. So can you try to analyze what this means? What is this knee-jerk reaction that we often see from the North, this rejection of any suggestion of equity? Quite obviously. Even a governor like Governor Zulum, claiming that he supports a southern presidency, had to insert this little caveat that it was completely unnecessary. Can you try and make sense of that?
Yes, thank you. That is part of what I was trying to articulate about the sensibilities and the sensitivities of this issue in our country. For a governor like Zulum already to begin to misinterpret the statement, which was very clearly clarified, like you just did, is unfortunate, because this is what begins to happen whenever people in the South start to agitate for what is legitimately their benefit as their right as citizens of Nigeria. And this is something that I believe the elite, the political leaders in the North, need to start to deal with as a people. And this always stems from the issue of the resources that drives the affairs of this country, and that is oil, unfortunately. But in the meantime, they seem to forget that in the North, there's a lot of mineral resources which we have not, as a legislature and as a people, begun to enshrine legislation that will drive how it can properly be managed and contribute to the Commonwealth of Nigeria. In Zamfara, you can see a lot of banditry informed by the issue of mining. In Niger, several parts of the North. So there's enough in the North, there's enough resources for the North to also depend on for the development of that part of the country. But this issue of oil is always what drives this, this word I will use now, this fear, whenever the southern people start to talk, and I think is uncalled for. And everybody in Nigeria has a right to self-actualization, like I said. They need to belong, and it is very clear that certain parts of this country, particularly the South, have not gotten their fair share of representation and participation in this coalition of protectorates. That's what I like to call it, it's an amalgamation of protectorates that evolved into the country Nigeria.
Thank you so much, Honorable Gbillah. I'd like to ask you, what are the concerns of the people in the Middle Belt? Because historically, when you look at the Middle Belt, they've always tilted to anybody that does their bidding. Let's go back to the days of Taka and the UMBCs of this world. Taka first tilted to the Action Group, because ideals of Aolowo and the likes. But let's not forget, he did a deal too with the Northerners, the Northern element, Progressive Front, when things were not, that smooth with the Action Group again. So as it is today, with what is happening, with the invasion of herdsmen in, the Middle Belt and the crisis and all of that, the insecurity, what is the thinking of an average person from the Middle Belt of this country as regards, the political positioning?
Yes, in that regard, very clearly, we believe that we have gotten the short end of the stick with regards to this entity called Nigeria. And like you rightly pointed, our elder statesmen like Taka tried to identify since then the fact that we have been marginalized as a people, as an ethnic region. We want to begin to properly let the Nigerian people know that we will not appreciate any part of this nation which does not recognize our existence, the fact that we are the ones who tip the scales, especially in the political equation of this country with regards to political processes, elections, and other issues, which is why right now some of us are in the process of pushing legislation for the creation of the North Central Development Commission. We believe it is our right, in the light especially of these incessant insecurity situations, the invasion of herdsmen that has come to stay without any action by the current government, who seem to play lip service, who seem to be going after people who have not been proven to have caused as much death as the herdsmen. The global community, the United Nations, has recognized the herdsmen as terrorists. The Nigerian nation has been unable to declare these herdsmen as terrorists, but they were quick to proscribe IPOB, which on record till date, it is only speculations we keep hearing about their causing so much death. But in regards to the herdsmen, it is on record, it is proven. Mieti Allah has on several occasions even, accepted to having been responsible or supported the actions because of their so-called perception of the rustling of cattle. So these are things that, as an ethnic nationality, as a part of this country, the Middle Belt, which some of us want to identify ourselves with, we believe that it is time we stand for what this country should represent, which is unity, equity, justice, and fair distribution of resources and control and participation in the issues of this country.
Well, Honorable Gbillah, talking about fairness, justice, equity, and all of that. Now, I'd like to draw your attention to two major bills before the National Assembly recently. First, the Petroleum Industry Bill, which is now very controversial. Persons from the southern part of the country have raised issues with regard to the definition of host communities, the definition of the frontier basin, and whether or not anything should go to those frontier basins and other sections of that PIB. The second one has to do with the Electoral Amendment Bill, particularly with regard to electronic transmission and also Section 88 dealing with campaign finance. What are your thoughts in that regard? Do you, now let me flip my original question. Do you think that we are facing, in those two regards, some kind of conspiracy from the northern lawmakers against the South?
Okay, let me first of all say I don't believe there's a conspiracy by the northern members of the National Assembly against the South, but very clearly there's a concern by the northern members about the issue of resource allocation and specifically the management of our oil resources, specifically as enshrined in the Petroleum Industry Bill. Now, it is important as a National Assembly that we recognize that this unnecessary bickering is not going to do this country any good, because in the very near future, these oil reserves will be of no use to us to a large extent because of renewable energy sources and alternatives that are gathering steam all over the world. We have innumerable acreages. As the former deputy chairman of the House Committee on Petroleum Resources Upstream, I am privy to the number, acreages or oil wells, as a layman will better understand, that we have across this country that the federal government still keeps holding on to and keeps dispensing at will with patronage that is of no use to this country. So I would like to advise my northern brothers to realize that if we do not quickly get our act together and do the right thing. So when we're allocating 30% to exploration, it is not to the benefit of this country because we're exploring what will very soon be obsolete. We should just make a reasonable provision towards that part of the industry and focus on exploiting what we already have to the maximum within the shortest possible time. And with regards to the issues in the host community, like I said, I am not immediately the host community yet at this point, but I have been to the South-South, I have been to oil producing areas, I have seen the environmental degradation, I have seen the means of livelihood that has been destroyed by oil production in that sector. And I believe that fairness, as I right now, I'm sure you know, I'm considered to be a northern member because of the virtue of my state, Benue State, although we like to recognize ourselves as the Middle Belt. So I'm talking from a point of view of somebody who is actually interested in justice, equity, and fairness. So the provision with regards to the 30% is unacceptable to some of us. We are in support of the Southern Governor's position in that regard. With regards to resource allocation, with regards to the host community, we believe 5% is too little. The 3% mentioned by the Senate is even ridiculous, completely. Then let me quickly go to the issue of the Electoral Act. Now, what I want to appeal to my colleagues in the Senate, because we have come to know that that is where the insertions came from. The chairman of the committee in the House at a recent meeting mentioned and told our colleagues that she is not aware of any changes to the initial harmonized version from both chambers of the House. But obviously, there is an insertion. I can confirm that about 20 clauses have been inserted, and it is alleged that it was inserted from the Senate version. And I want to say that we are at a point in our country when we should not be playing politics with this issue in this country. I wonder why people think that they're going to stay in power in perpetuation. Tomorrow it will be somebody else. We need to leave a legacy for our country. We need to leave a legacy for our nation. The world is moving forward, and we're still deliberating on electronic transmission when it is something that is a foregone issue in other nations. We in the opposition are insisting that the provision of electronic transmission is sacrosanct. There is no compromise, and we suspect that those insertions were intentional, were premeditated, so that this Electoral Act will be contentious and it won't be passed, so that in the upcoming elections, the ability to rig and to manipulate the result of the election will be possible. This is unfortunate. This is something we are going to resist. We call on Nigerians to rise up to the fact that this is the time when they should take responsibility for the people they have elected to represent them. The servants cannot dictate to the owners. This country belongs to you, Nigerians. You need to rise up and make your voices heard. And some of us are there to support your position and to pursue what is best for this country.
Indeed. Thank you, Honorable. Now, in the whole melee over electronic voting and the limits to campaign financing, which might as well not exist in the proposed bill, a lot of people have forgotten the important issue of diaspora voting, which INEC has been in support of. So I want to ask you, of all people, because we all recall what happened when you tried to lay a petition before the House of Representatives with regards to the TIV nation, I believe it was, in America, petitioning the House of Representatives, as is their right as Nigerians with regards to their ancestral land, and you could not lay that petition. So I want your take on diaspora voting and its importance, given the size of the Nigerian diaspora, the economic impact of the Nigerian diaspora to the tune of $20 billion, 40% of the remittances that come to sub-Saharan Africa are from Nigeria, and they've been shut out of the electoral process.
Yes, that is something that is quite unfortunate. Let me use this opportunity to appreciate and commend our brothers and sisters in diaspora for the monumental contribution they make to the economy of our country and our continent as a whole. It is something that we are trying to ensure is provided for in the current electoral process, which is why the registration which is going on now online is commendable. INEC needs to be commended for that, so that provides them to the opportunity to register. But it's not only about registration, it's about being able to vote. Many Nigerians who don't mean well for this country always start to talk about how the electronic process, technology can be compromised and all of that. We always need to know that there are foolproof mechanisms that can be put in place to ensure that these alternative means of registration or voting are safe. This is something that is in existence in other parts of the world without issues for decades, for centuries, if I might say. We in this country always want to support our analog and manual way of operation because of how it benefits those who want to manipulate the process to their advantage. But the issue of diaspora cannot be emphasized. It's long overdue, and it's something that has to be ensured, and which is why we are clamoring for that provision in the Electoral Act, which is something that will now assist our brothers and sisters, our compatriots in diaspora, to also be able to participate in the electoral process in Nigeria and make their voices heard towards the election of those who represent them.
All right, real quickly, I've been keen on asking this all this while. Why is it that we don't even have voting records to start with in the National Assembly? Why is it that we have voice votes on most of the votes? Because if from voting records we can track the way our lawmakers have represented us on various national bills, then we can speak truth to power even more. I mean, why is that the process very nebulous? Like, we don't know the bills, we don't know the voting records and things like that. Can this electronic voting start from the National Assembly itself? And what's your take on state police, real quickly?
Okay, so this 9th Assembly made a very commendable effort to provide every member, well, let me not even say the 9th Assembly, the House of Representatives. So right now, all of us in the House of Representatives, for the first time, have a console where we can see the order of the day. We have copies of the standing rules of the House, the Constitution, and we can vote on that platform. The problem is its usage. And that is what some of us have also been clamoring for. There should be a record. And we're not helping our legislative process. So I am quick to admit that we are falling short in that regard as a National Assembly to do what globally is the norm, to make your representatives accountable so you can have a record of their position on every issue. The provision has been made in the House of Representatives is for Nigerians to also start to demand, and for some of us in the House to also start to put pressure that it be used. The voice vote, obviously, is to the advantage in certain issues. But if we start to vote like we already have provisions to do so, then there can be a clear-cut demarcation of where everybody stands. So I agree with you, it's something that is long overdue, and we have to rise up to our responsibility in that regard. The issue of state police, I already mentioned earlier, the support of the Middle Belt, and in fact, most of my colleagues in the House at the moment to the issue of state police, and it is something that we're pushing very assiduously for its inclusion in the current constitutional amendment so that we can, as a people in this country, start to get more responsibility towards the primary role of government, which is the security and the welfare of our people. And if we have to make it a standalone bill on its own in the interim, that we're going to ensure that we do so.
Well, thank you very much, Honorable Gbillah, for joining us this morning on the morning show. Thank you very much indeed, and we wish you all the best.